What's up, toothbrushes? Yes, there's a reason why we keep those around. Use that to create what the customer wanted for a design. Really turned out nice. This is what we had to start with and then fabricate the countertops to fit. There's a kitchen within their office as well, which really turned out nice. So the customer's inspiration photo was a piece of laminate that was kind of a terrazzo type design. And then with their color theme, I had to match their colors. And to do that, I used some acrylic paints and then added a little bit of water into those cups to be able to use, you got it, toothbrushes to try to recreate what it is that they wanted. This is what we came up with. Customer approved it, customer loved it, so now it's time to get to work. So we had to fabricate the top, that's the top, and now we're getting ready to try to figure out how we're gonna do this. And the edges were kind of one of the bigger challenges, and so what I determined to do was I put just a little bit of that paint on my fingers and flicked that onto the edges. And the reason I used plastic is because when I first tried it, the paint splatters were kind of getting up over the top. So let's go on.
I'd like to say here's the fun part, but I don't know how fun this is going to be. The important thing is trying to get these drops to drop straight down so they don't look like splatters.
Just so you know, after fabricating this top, I applied 3 coats of Stone Coat's white undercoat paint, and that's what I'm putting kind of the splatters or the drips over. And I did 3 coats because I needed to have a really good uniform color. So let's do a flyover and you can get a little bit more of a close-up of how this looks and then how this is going to compare with what the customer wanted.
So what I tried to do was, obviously all the drips are different sizes, which is a good thing. I didn't want them to be completely consistent all the way across. And let's buzz over here.
And there were a few times that I had some big drops land on there, and all it took was a paper towel to blot those up.
And then the edges, I would say the edges were a little bit tricky, only because I did have to flick them on the edges. And then what I'll do when that dries is I'll touch anything up if I've got any big runs or anything. But that is the sample that the customer gave me was from a laminate terrazzo. Terrazzo. And so it wasn't a true terrazzo like what you see on floors where, you know, there's tiny little chips. That can be done with this design, but not when the customer needs this built, poured, and installed in 5 days. So there we go. And I'm just gonna get this poured out.
So now it's time to apply the flood coat. And for the flood coat, I'm using Stone Coat's Art Coat. And I like to use an 1/8 inch by 1/8 inch square notch trowel because I know that I can use 3 ounces per square foot and get perfectly even coverage.
I'm gonna take my hand and I'm not only gonna make sure that I've got good coverage on the edge, but I wanna roll my fingers underneath there as well because I want that epoxy to roll underneath that edge.
And once I have my edges fully covered, then I know the epoxy is going to flow over very evenly. And instead of using a chop brush, I use my hand to get the trowel marks out.
All right, now I'm going to torch bubbles out. And by torching the bubbles out, that's going to do a couple different things by using a torch. One, it's going to heat the epoxy up just a little bit to make it a little bit more fluid, and that will help in helping it to self-level. And then of course also get those bubbles popped. Now this flood coat is very important for me to make sure that I don't have any ripples, I don't have any imperfections, and most importantly that I don't have dimples by the time it's all set up. And those dimples come from not popping all the bubbles and those bubbles popping late, and when they pop late, they pop and the epoxy is too set up for that popped bubble to self-level and it ends up with a divot. So that's why it's really important to torch 2 different directions. That way you make sure that you're getting full coverage. Now, if you want to know how much you heated up your epoxy, you can get one of these little digital infrared thermometers. Shows my surface temp at 72, so I can go ahead and torch a second time. Now again, this time I'm going to torch the opposite direction without trying to lean into it.
By the way, those digital thermometers are actually really handy because it can test the temperature of your epoxy and the temperature of your surface.
Now let's see how much that actually heated it up. Not much, 75.7, 75.8, 76 degrees. Come down here where I just finished. So really only heated that up about 4 degrees. Now, white is very difficult to see if you have all your bubbles torched out. So that's where you really need to use your glare.
And if you're pouring on site, you don't have the advantage of walking all the way around. So look real close to make sure you get those bubbles popped.
Notice how I'm not holding the torch straight up and down, because that really concentrates your flame only in one area, but yet run at about a 45-degree angle. I'm kind of pushing that heat outwards, which is also helping to, two things. It's helping to pop the bubbles in a larger area. And if I'm doing it like this, I'm getting the bubbles popped here, 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 but not anywhere in between. Does that make sense? Another reason for waiting is you're allowing some of those micro bubbles that are down a little bit deeper, give them a little bit of time to rise up to the surface.
So all in all, this project really turned out nice and the customer absolutely loved it. That's the kitchen countertop. Turned out great, matches the customer's colors and the color theme in their office. There's the credenza in the back as well as the reception desk. There again is another shot of the credenza and another one as well. And this gives you a little bit better of an idea of the color theme of this women's clinic. Thanks everybody for watching. Once again, this is Keith McGinnis with KCDC Designs. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And if you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out. Email, text, message, whatever it takes. I want to do everything I can to help. So thanks again, everybody, and we'll see you on the next video.